Hi, it's Lee and welcome to the Tesla Economist. Many people are talking about how Tesla are going to get through this recession. Earnings may suffer during such an event and the stock price could suffer too. But as soon as they get through to the other side, the company will thrive again as the future is bright for Tesla. I've believed for some time that the future of Tesla depends on the 4680 sales. I even read a comment the other day that said, do you ever make a video without mentioning 4680s? To me, it was clear that the largest part of Tesla's future depends on 4680 sales. There's no way Tesla can grow at the rate it intends to without them. Why? What do I mean in particular? Well, to put it simply, the dry battery electrode process. This is the process that facilitates the battery production and means they can be produced at perhaps 5 to 10 times as fast in almost 1/10 the same space. That is a giant leap in production speed, cost and capital, meaning Tesla can ramp up production much faster and saving a lot of money on the highest cost element in EVs, the battery. The entire EV industry is constrained by the amount of batteries that are available, and the future growth of the industry depends at what rate batteries can be produced. 4680s would change the game. Giga Nevada opened in 2015. It is an enormous complex, but was only built to 1/3 its planned size. Had the building been completed, then it would have been the largest building in the world. It was not fully completed, as I think early on Tesla realized just how insane it would be to have had to build enough to make even 1 million EVs a year using these cells, when this factory has a capacity at around 35 to 40 gigawatt hours a year, or around 500,000 cars. For that factory to make enough cells to transition to sustainable energy with batteries, then it would take almost 10,000 years. And that would be if none needed to be replaced within that time. There needed to be a better alternative. In the meantime, in China, LFP chemistry was growing in the batteries over there. A lower cost, less energy dense cell, but it was also safer, which made it an easier battery to produce, and can also use lower grade lithium, which saves time in the refining process, which can be a limiting factor. These LFP cells are far more abundant than nickel cells like the 2170, and can therefore be used to make more electric cars faster. So Tesla managed to also take advantage of LFP cells. Due to Tesla's efficiency with their powertrain, Tesla were able to get a good range on the LFP cells. And not only were they lower cost than 2170 cells, they were far more abundant. Eventually, Tesla even moved over to LFP cells for their standard range being produced in Fremont. Tesla ramped their production up in Shanghai to very impressive levels, and seem to have now reached their demand for those vehicles. In other words, there's little more market left for LFP-propelled Teslas, except for perhaps a rear-wheel drive Model Y in the US. Tesla's market for LFP vehicles has otherwise saturated. As a result, Tesla have reduced their prices to meet the market. The point I'm trying to make is Tesla have done all they can with LFP cells. Even if there's more supply for them, they simply don't have the demand for them for their current model lineup. Except Tesla also have their own Megapack factory now too, which will also be using LFP cells. There's a lot of hope for Tesla Energy due to rumours that the margins might be as high as 50%. If so, and the new factory ramps, then there is possibility Megapacks could make as much as $5 to $10 billion a year. This is obviously going to be interesting to watch, and could maintain the company's high profits even during a recession if the auto business starts to really suffer, as energy should be okay during a recession, or potentially even thrive. The other option Tesla have with LFP cells is to make a smaller, lower-cost Tesla, the compact Tesla, a $30,000 Tesla. Except this would likely have to compete heavily with the Tesla Model 3, which is already as low as $33,500 in China. I would say Tesla would need to hit that $25,000 price point for it to be cheaper enough than the Model 3 to make a difference. Otherwise, the Model 3 would seem like much more car for the money. There's also no factory in which to build a compact Tesla anytime soon. There are certain overheads with an EV, whether you have an SUV with a 150 kilowatt hour battery or a compact with just 30 kilowatt hour. Overheads in weight and cost. Getting down to that price point is tough, especially to maintain Tesla's safety and features. However, Elon has said he thinks he can cut the cost of the Model 3 by half in a new platform, which I think would be under $20,000. So therefore, it is possible to profit from such a compact, if you think Tesla can get below that cost. I would guess that these would still cannibalize Model 3 sales though, but it is a vehicle that Tesla could make that can utilize more LFP cells. You might have expected demand to be almost unlimited for such a Tesla too. However, since Tesla have reduced the price of the Model 3 to what I think is a really low price, the waiting lists are still only 1 or 4 weeks. They don't appear to have increased much, or perhaps the website has not updated it accurately. And this is also including some time this month for the factories to actually be down. This doesn't look good for demand, and makes you wonder, even if Tesla launched a compact, then perhaps it wouldn't have unlimited demand either. Perhaps it is amazing, it could sell maybe 2 million units a year, and possibly a gross profit of $5,000 per vehicle, so perhaps $10 billion a year gross profit is possible, although likely reducing profits further of the Model 3 due to cannibalization. But Tesla do have the energy business to build, and there is a backlog at the Megapack factory of around 2 years. We don't know what the future of the demand might be after that is exhausted, but the factory capacity is only 40 gigawatt hours, so it shouldn't be too hard to match that, and potentially with some good gross margins. How many Megapacks the world needs, we still have yet to find out. It would be good to know what the real margins are coming out of there. Other than a compact car and expanding energy, I think that is the only future for Tesla with LFP cells. Yes, we might expect Tesla to eventually make their own LFP cells and dry battery electrode process, and perhaps with structural battery packs, then possibly they can get longer ranges, which will broaden the applications. If Tesla can do their own in-house LFP cells, then they could be a money printing machine. But lithium will be a big limiting factor. Lithium refineries are very capital intensive. They take about 7 years to get going. But Elon thinks he can make his own within 2 years. But let's not forget how many delays we've seen in the past with Elon's estimates, like 4680 sales. And all that was just a segue of saying that Tesla's future relies on 4680 production, at least for autos, as Tesla's LFP products are somewhat saturated, and the LFP market is becoming very competitive with so much competition coming from China, offering more modern designs and more variety than just 2 models that Tesla offer. Tesla want to grow. Tesla built 2 enormous factories for that purpose. Those factories have capacities of 600,000 to perhaps even 1 million Model Ys alone. The business model all revolves around future growth. But let's say the new factories produce just 1 million combined. Current run rate is around 350,000 combined. Now that's not nothing, and is enough to make a slight profit at the current prices. I just don't know how Tesla can ramp up any more production this year from those factories. There are only so many 2170 cells, and Elon even said they're using a stockpile. On the Q2 earnings call, Elon said, "To be clear, we're currently making the cars with the 2170 cells, and Drew Baglino will address some of the 4680 questions later in this call. But it's worth emphasizing that we have enough 2170 cells to satisfy all vehicle production for the remainder of the year. So we're not dependent on 4680. 4680 will be important next year, but it's not important for this year. But next year is this year." I know everyone thinks Tesla has enough cells because of an article about how Tesla has all the access to batteries it needs. But the actual quote was, "For the first time, I can remember we can access all the supply we need for both businesses." Infer it how you wish, but one inference is that it means that Tesla now have enough LFP cells for their cars, and they can now ramp up energy. It doesn't necessarily mean Tesla have enough cells to ramp up the new factories, just enough that they can ramp up energy. Now, Tesla may very well have enough 2170 cells to maintain this current rate without a stockpile, but the question is, where do they go from here? Just to ramp up the Model Y factories, we need 650,000 to 1 million more cars, or probably around 60 gigawatt hours a year, almost twice what Giga Nevada produces. That's a lot of nickel cells. Well, this is what the 4680 cells are for. They were meant to hit 100 gigawatt hours a year last year, yet we're only at 4% of that run rate. On top of that, the 4680s are less energy dense, and end up with a product that has 50 miles less range than a 2170 long-range vehicle, meaning they will sell for less. So if the new factories are ramped, then Tesla's 4680 Model Ys will sell for less than the long-range version, whilst also cannibalizing some of the long-range market. In other words, demand for the long-range Model Ys would drop as a result, and thus would prices and margins. For example, if Texas was perhaps making 500,000 4680 Model Ys, then this would take demand from the 250,000 long-range Model Ys, so the long-range prices have to drop, and then so would the 4680 prices, especially if there are 3 times as many Model Ys being made in the US. Remember, when we increase supply, we need to reduce prices to increase the demand to meet the new supply. 3 times as many models requires a lot more demand. Of course, as the prices come down, then that's all coming out of gross profit. The more gross profit dwindles, then it hits operating profit about twice as hard, which will affect earnings heavily. Yes, 4680 Model Ys are meant to be a lower cost, so there is more room for margin there too. We're told the 4680 cell can get down to $70 a kilowatt hour, but currently it must be much higher until it's ramped. And using DBE in the cathode, the chemistry for the 4680 has not changed from the 2170. They're still using cobalt. However, if you question this in the community, then you're a moron. Did you really think that the first iteration of the cell would have only nickel and used silicon in the anode? Well, yeah, I kind of did after Battery Day. Just like I was expecting to be close to 100 gigawatt hours of production. Right now, you're meant to believe that Tesla are working on getting the cost of the cells down, then increase the rate of production, and then once that's sorted, they can work on the chemistry to improve energy density. But these cells will also need to power the almighty Cybertruck. I think the Cybertruck will have to have a different battery pack from the Model Y, as it's going to need a lot more cells in there, perhaps twice as many, if they want to get that sort of range. That is a lot of cells, and Tesla gives some outstanding figures on that car. Personally, I think the current energy density is probably enough for the single motor version and should be capable of getting 250 miles of range, possibly even with the Model Y battery pack, if they add some more cells. I think for another version, then they need to improve the energy density, which the 4680 lines in Texas may well be that improvement. We just don't get told, and no one ever asks enough about 4680 progress on any earnings calls. But along with the 4680 energy density being lower than 2170 cells, it was so low, many people thought that Tesla was so amazing, as the Texas Model Y was actually using LFP cells. It seemed so low, I started speculating on software upgrades for range. But when tested, it turned out to be low energy density. And then when the weight is compared to the 2170 cells, it's only 20 pounds lighter, as in the structural battery pack and front casting only saves 20 pounds, yet delivers 50 miles less range. We recently heard that they are now on 4 gigawatt hour a year run rate. And then if you question this in the community, you're also a moron, because you don't understand exponentials or S-curves. Even if it takes 2 years longer than you were told, and actually believed too. It has been a few years since Battery Day now, and we're still only at 4 gigawatt hour a year run rate. 4% of the target, and enough for 1,000 cars a week, or around 50,000 a year, or around 3.5% more production than the current run rate. I think Tesla can grow production 50% this year still. They have the capacity. Even if they don't ramp the new factories any further, it will be close to 50% increase. That would require selling all vehicles still, at whatever price they have to. It's the growth after that I see Tesla struggling. Perhaps their backup is Panasonic's 4680 cells. If Tesla can't get their dry battery electrode tabless cells working, then Panasonic might be able to help. But those factories won't likely be running for a couple more years. So if Tesla don't get 4680s ramped, I see them really struggling to get production for any quarter this year, much higher than Q4 production numbers. So even if Tesla can get through a recession just fine, we still aren't certain there is all that growth that we were promised until the technology has been proven. Thanks for listening. Please hit the thumbs up and subscribe. You can follow me on Twitter and talk to me on Patreon.